Good. All derivatives of tuma do not contaminate utensils, but they do contaminate liquids. If a liquid contracts tuma, it contaminates the utensils. Thus, this one says that which contaminates tuma to you cannot contaminate me, yet you contaminate me. An earthenware vessel cannot contaminate another earthenware vessel, but it does contaminate liquids. If a liquid contracts tuma, it contaminates it. Thus, this one says that which contaminates you cannot contaminate me, yet you can contaminate me. Anything that renders truma unfit contaminates liquids that to a beginning level of truma, with a capacity to contaminate one and render an unfit one, except for Artevel Yom. This one says that which contaminates you cannot contaminate me, yet you can contaminate me. Okay.
Hey, Kol Hayamim Kamikveh. Okay, so the sea is considered like a mikveh. Now remember, there are two possibilities. It's either going to be like a mikveh or it's going to be like a mayan. Okay, and the mayan is different because it's mayim chayim. It's stronger than a mikveh because not only can it be used to purify zav and a metzora, but it can also be used for mayim chayim to purify the metzora and for the meichatas, for the paradoma. Okay, so the Mishnah starts out by saying that the sea is considered a mikveh, not a mayan. Shenemar ula mikveh amayim kara yamim. It's from the pasuk. It's from Bereshis that this is called the seas. Divrei Rabbi Meir. So that says Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Meir hayam hagadol kamikveh. Only the ocean is like a mikveh. It says, but an inland sea, for example, the Kinneret, would be considered, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Kinneret would be considered a mayan. Okay, why lo nemar yamim ela sheyesh bo mina yamim harbe? The only reason why it's called yamim is because lots of all the rivers that flow into it. So it's a collection of lots of different waters, and that's the Gezeres HaKasuv. That's why the sea is called the sea is considered a mikveh rather than a mayan, but the Kinneret would still be considered a mayan. Okay, Rabbi Yossi Omer kol hayamim metarin bezochelin. Says, but there's a difference with the sea. Says Rabbi Yossi, is that a mikveh, the water has to be inside the mikveh in order to purify. Okay, but with the sea, you've got waves breaking all the time, so that's called flowing water. And he says, but even that is considered is good enough to purify. So, for example, if you just want to use you need something that goes to mikveh, or a person needs to go to mikveh, or a kli needs to go to mikveh, that's sufficient that you hold your hand under the wave as it washes over you and washes back, and that's done. Okay. But you cannot use seawater for any of these things that need to be mayan. So mayan purifies with flowing water as opposed to the sea, but the sea as opposed to a mikveh, but the sea, even though it's considered a mikveh, according to Rabbi Yossi, and the halacha follows Rabbi Yossi, is that the sea purifies even though it's flowing.
And salt water doesn't affect the use of the mikveh then?
Well, then you have remembered from the past our next Mishna, Hamayim HaMukim. Okay, water that has been what's the word? It's affected. It's not inferior waters. How's it translated? Mayim Mukim.
This is disqualified because they are marsh waters.
No. Beginning of Mishnah Tes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Waters that cease to flow are invalid.
Waters that have ceased to flow. Okay. So that's invalid. Eloheina Mukim. What is considered Mukim? Hameluchim v'haposhim. If it's salty or if it's lukewarm. Okay. So we just learned over here that salty water is invalid. So why are we coming into? I mean, it's salty water is invalid for mayan. It's not. It can still be a mikveh, but it can't be for mayim chayim. Okay. So why do we have to teach that the sea is pasul as a mayan when it should be pasul just because by virtue of the fact that it's salty? So some Mefarshim, the Mefarshim go into it and say that there are areas in the sea where you have greater and lesser salinity, and you can even have patches that from some dynamic where the water is actually even drinkable. So so that's just to exclude those things. You can't just say, oh, that's Mayim Chaim over there because it's not salty. No, the sea period is a mikveh, it's not a maya. Okay. Elohim Mayim Mechazvim. So what is considered Mayim Mechazvim, water that has stopped flowing? Oh, Mayim Mechazvim Psulim. So water that ceases is also considered is not good for Mayim Chayim. HaMechazvim Echad B'Shavua. If it dries up once in a Shemitah cycle, once in 7 years, that's considered a non-constant stream, and therefore it is not good as Mayim Chayim. However, if it dries up because the army's been and they've just been damming it up and drinking all the water, or if it's a year of particular drought, that's not considered a psul. Rabbi Yehuda posel. However, Rabbi Yehuda says that if it's vulnerable to that, then it is still pasul as a mayan. Okay, but the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda in this. May karmion and may puga. So the mortar of the rivers Karmion and Puga are pasul. Why? Because they are swamp water. Okay. So the Jordan and the Yarmuk are not valid because they are a mixture of waters. Because non-kosher rivers flow into them as well. The Yarmuk is, by the way, it's a river on the other side of the Jordan that flows into the Jordan. Okay, ve'eluhein mei tarovas. What is considered mixed up waters? Echad kasher ve'echad pasul shenis arvu. If you have one river that has got inferior waters and is pasul and it mixes with a kosher river, then that's called a mixture of waters. Shneim ksherim v'nis arvu. However, if both of them are kosher for mayan, and they mix up kesherin, then that's fine. Rabbi Yehuda again was Bosel. He says that even if you've got two kosher rivers that join together, Rabbi Yehuda passes it as Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot fill up your Mayim Chayim from the place where they mix. It's a gezerah because of a situation where one river is pasul, but the halacha again does not follow Rabbi Yehuda.
Doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda, right?
By the way, it's only pasul in the previous case, the consensus case where you have one river that's pasul and one that's kosher, and they mix together. You're only not allowed to take your water from the place where they mix. But if it's further downstream where the water again is clear and usable, then that's still called Mei Mayan.
Okay.
And that's now drinkable. Okay.
Good. Okay.
Right. Perek Sheish.
Vav Aleph. Regarding someone who was consecrating Mekatis and the consecration ashes fell on his hands or on the side of the trough and afterwards fell into the trough, the consecration is invalid. If they fell from the tube into the trough, the consecrated is invalid. If he took ashes from the tube and then covered the ashes or closed the door, the consecration ashes are valid, but the water is invalid. If he stood this tube on the ground, the ashes are invalid, and if he held the tube in his hand, the ashes are valid because it is possible to guard them. If the consecration ashes were floating on the top of the water, Reb Meir and Reb Shimon say he may take the ashes and consecrate Mekatis with them, but the Reb say any ashes that touch the water, one may not consecrate Mekatis with them. If he sprinkled the consecrated water and found consecration ashes at the bottom, Reb Meir and Reb Shimon say he may dry them and consecrate Mekatis with them. But the Reb say any ashes that have touched the water, one may not consecrate Mekatis with them. Regarding one who consecrated Mekatis in a trough, and the tefa bottle in the trough, even though the mouth of the tefa bottle is extremely narrow, the water within it is consecrated. If there was a sponge in the trough, the water within the trough the sponge is valid. If there was a sponge in the trough, the water within the sponge is invalid. What should he do? He should pour out the water in the trough until he reaches the sponge. If he touches the sponge, even though the water is floating above it in any amount, the water is invalid. If one positions his hand or his foot
That's it. We're done.
That was it. Okay.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, I'm sorry?
Yeah, and the guy
Tomorrow,
tomorrow, both of them, the Parah continues. If it's maybe if,
all right, continues the next one. Okay. And the guy, test Aleph. A boil or a burn is tummy for no more than 1 week unless it has one of these two symptoms, white hair or expansion. What is considered a boil? If one was injured by wood or by stone or an olive peat or by waters of Tiberias or by any heat not caused by fire, this is a boil. What is considered a burn? If he was burnt by oil or an ash, any heat caused by fire, this is a burn. Boil nega and boil nega do not combine together. I'm sorry, boil nega and burn nega do not combine together, nor do they spread from one to the other, nor do they spread onto skin. Once not does it, nor does a nega of the skin spread onto them. If the negayim are of more flesh, they are rebellious, and they are tahu. If they form the membrane the thickness of a garlic peel, this is the partially healed boil mentioned in the Torah. If they healed, they reverted and became normal. Even though a scar remains, they are judged as regular skin. If Eliezer says, what is the law of a baharis the size of a zella grows on the inside of someone's hand and it is on a specially barked boil? He said to them, the Kohen should confine him. And they said to him, why? And the haris cannot grow white hair, nor can it expand, nor does it become tummy if it contains a mikvah. He said to them, maybe the baharis will contract and subsequently expand. They said to him, but what if the partially healed boil is the size of a grist? He said to them, I was not taught. Rabbi Yehuda ben Mitzara said to Rabbi Eliezer, I can expound on the subject. And Rabbi Eliezer said to him, Rabbi Yehuda ben Mitzara, if it is a whole uphold the words of the common, you may. He said to him, perhaps another boil will develop next to it, into which a nega will astray. He said to him, you are a great sage who have upheld the words of the sages.
okay. Kalim, Chaf Bezah.
Regarding a chair whose two adjacent slats were removed, Rabbi Akiva says it rose a tummy, but the sages were the tahu. Rabbi Yehuda said even a bridal chair whose panels were removed and a receptacle remained in it is tahu, since the primary function is disabled and the secondary function is also disabled. A bin whose upper part was removed is tummy on account of the lower part, but the lower part was removed and is tummy on account of the upper part. If both the upper and lower parts were removed, Rabbi Yehuda was tummy on account of the sides, and the sages rule the tahu. The stone man's seat can become tummy with midges tumah. Excuse me. Regarding a block that one painted with red paint and painted with saffron dye and planed, Rabbi Akiva rules the tummy, but the kakaman rules the tahu until one carves it. Regarding a woven basket or a reed basket that one filled with straw or flocking, if one prepared them for sitting upon, they are tahor, but if one wove the basket with reedgrass reedgrass or cord, they are tummy.
Okay,
Okay.
that's it.
And we have dvachim. Okay, test base. The following should not be taken down once they have gone up: that which has been kept overnight, or that which has become tummy, or which has become taken out of the courtyard, or which has been slaughtered with intent for beyond its time or outside its place, or which disqualified people received, or through its blood. Rabbi Yehuda said the offering which was slaughtered at night, or whose blood spilled, or whose blood was taken upon the curtains, or it was taken up and it must be taken down. Rabbi Shimon says it should not be taken down, for Rabbi Shimon said would say any offering whose invalidation is in the holy accepts it, but if its invalidation was not in the holy does not accept it. The following did not have their invalidations in the holy: an animal that committed an act of bestiality, an animal which an act of bestiality was performed, an animal designated for idolatrous sacrifice, an animal which had been worshipped, a harlot's payment, a dog's exchange, a mixed breed, a treifa, an animal born by cesarean section, and blemished animals. And Akiva validates in the case of blemished animals. And Hananya, the administrator of the Kohanim, says father would run blemished animals away from the altar. Just as once they were brought up, they are not taken down, so too once they were taken down, they may not be brought up. If any of them are sentenced to the top of the altar while alive, they should be taken down. An olam which is sentenced to the top of the altar while alive should be taken down. If he slaughtered at the top of the altar, it may skin and dismember it in its place.
He must skin and slaughter it in its place, and that's his punishment for messing it up.
Okay. The tubos. Now, Yud Aleph Vav. A minor who exercised the right of refusal, a relative of the second degree, or an alonis are not entitled to a tuba, or an ufrik, or a sustenance, or worn out articles. But if from the onset he married her knowing that she was an alonis, she is entitled to a ketubah. A widow married to a Kohen Gadol, divorcee, or a woman who had performed Chalitza married to an ordinary Kohen, a Mamzeres, a Nishanite married to a regular Jew, and the daughter of a regular Jew married to a Nishanite or a Mamzer are entitled to a Ketubah. If one marries a woman and she stipulates with him that he support her daughter for 5 years, he is obligated to support her for 5 years. If she marries another man, she stipulates with him that he support her daughter for 5 years, he is still obligated to support her for 5 years. The first one shall not say, when she comes to me, I will support her. Rather, he must take her sustenance to the place where her mother is. And likewise, both of them shall not say, we will support her together. Rather, one must support her and the other must give her the value of sustenance. If she marries the husband provides her with sustenance, and they give her the value of sustenance. If they die, the daughters are supported from unencumbered property, but she is supported even from assigned property, since she is like a creditor. The clever would write on the condition that I support your daughter for 5 years as long as you are with me.
All right.
And
Mastros, Gimel.
If one hires a laborer to tend olives, and he said to them, on condition that I may eat olives, if one eats one by one, he's exempt, but if he combines them, he is liable. To weed out onions, and he said to him, on condition that I might eat greens, he may pluck leaf by leaf and eat, but if he combine, he is liable. If one found dried figs on the road, or even beside a field of dried figs, so too if he found figs under a fig tree overhanging the road, they are permitted and do not constitute theft and are exempt from miseries. But olives and carbs are liable. If he found dried figs, then if most of them have already passed their figs, he is liable. But if not, he is exempt. If he found slices of fig cakes, he is liable, since they evidently derive from the finished product. If carobs have not yet been taken to the rooftop, he may take some down for the cattle and is exempt from, since he returns the remainder. What courtyard room is not liable to miseries? Rabbi Yisrael says a Tyrian yard whose goods are under guard. Rabbi Kiva says any which one person opens, the other closes is exempt. The Nechemia says anywhere a person is shy not to eat, rent is liable. Rabbi Yossi says anywhere if one enters and no one says to him, what do you see, is exempt. Rabbi Yehuda says that there are two courtyards, one within the other. The inner one is liable and the outer one is exempt.
Okay. And we are done.
Thank you. Don't forget, tomorrow is